Good day, class. So today we are going to talk about consumer behavior in microeconomics. So before we start, let us first tackle the learning outcomes or the objectives for today. First one, you are to define consumer behavior in microeconomics, explain how economic conditions affect consumer decisions, analyze changes in shopping behavior, interpret the graph presented in the article, and connect real-world consumer trends to the concepts. So to begin, in microeconomics, consumer behavior refers to how individuals decide to spend their limited income in order to maximize satisfaction or utility. Consumers constantly make decisions such as what to buy, why they buy, how much they buy, and when they buy. These decisions are influenced by many factors like income, prices, preferences, trends, convenience, and even fear during uncertain times. According to the article which is presented to the next slide by the Forbes, consumer behavior drastically changed after the pandemic because people became more cautious about spending and more dependent on digital technology. The article explains that consumers are now focusing more on essential needs, saving money, convenience, online shopping, and hybrid lifestyles that combine physical and digital preferences. This directly connects to the microeconomic idea that consumers try to maximize utility while minimizing cost and effort. On to the next slide, the article talks about consumers are becoming more focused on what they truly need instead of what they simply want. In microeconomics, the difference between needs are essential goods such as food, water, medicine, and shelter, while wants are non-essential goods that provide additional satisfaction like luxury items, gadgets, or expensive brands. During economic uncertainty, consumers prioritize necessities because income becomes more valuable and limited. For example, if a family experiences rising fuel prices or inflation, they may reduce restaurant spending, delay their gadget purchases, and focus more on groceries and transportation. This shows the economic principle of rational consumer choice. The article even mentions that rising gas prices cause many Americans to change their driving habits. That means consumers adjusted their behavior in response to changing economic conditions. Further, the article talks about a graph. According to the graph, around 32.8% of adults were shopping less in physical stores. This graph demonstrates a major shift in consumer preference from traditional shopping to online or hybrid shopping methods. In microeconomics, this reflects changes in consumer preferences, convenience maximization, and reduced transaction costs. Consumers realize that online shopping saves them time, it reduces their transportation costs, and provides them easier access to their products. As a result, businesses had to adapt by creating both physical and digital preferences or digital presence. In the article, it also presented related concepts in analyzing microeconomic and consumer behavior. The graph relates to consumer preference theory, opportunity cost, demand shift. This means that consumers prefer methods that provide greater convenience and utility. It also means that the time spent by the consumers traveling to stores can now be used for work, study, or leisure instead of being stuck in the traffic. And lastly, the demand increased for the delivery services, e-commerce, and digital payment systems. Meanwhile, some physical stores experienced reduced customer traffic. This shows that consumer behavior directly affects market demand and business strategy. But the big question is, why businesses study consumer behavior? That topic will tackle by Ms. Gire.
Data-driven decision making. Another major point in the article is that businesses can no longer rely only on intuition or past experience. Instead, companies now use data analytics, artificial intelligence, customer tracking, and consumer insights. Why? Because consumer behavior changes rapidly. For example, a restaurant today must know what customers want, when customers buy, whether customers prefer dine-in or delivery, and what products are trending. This is why companies gather consumer data to predict future demand. In microeconomics, firms study consumer behavior because consumer demand determines production, pricing, marketing, and resource allocation. Second major concept, budget-conscious consumers. The article states that many consumers became more budget-conscious and focus more on necessities. This is connected to the microeconomic principle of limited income and scarcity. Consumers cannot buy everything they want because resources are limited. Therefore, they must make choices. This introduces the concept of utility maximization. Consumers aim to gain the highest satisfaction possible from limited income. For example, instead of buying luxury coffee daily, some consumers may brew coffee at home, buy cheaper brands, or reduce unnecessary expenses. These are examples of rational economic decisions.
So the second graph in the article is titled Prosper Life Changes Last 6 Months. The graph showed that about 46.9 of adults focus more on needs rather than the wants. Around 32.9% became more budget conscious. Discussion of the graph. This graph reflects changing priorities among consumers. In the past, consumers may have focused more on luxury, entertainment, or impulse buying. But after economic disruptions and inflation concerns, many consumers shifted toward practical spending, savings, and financial security. Microeconomic connection. This graph demonstrates income effect. When purchasing power decreases, consumers buy fewer non-essential goods. Second is the substitution effect. Consumers switch to cheaper alternatives. Lastly is the consumer equilibrium. Consumers attempt to balance satisfaction with limited income. So this graph also explains why many businesses now offer discounts, create loyalty programs, and promote affordability. So next one is the privacy and consumer trust. Another important issue discussed in the article is consumer privacy. Today, businesses collect massive amounts of consumer data. However, consumers are becoming more aware of privacy rights, data protection, and digital security. The article emphasizes that businesses must gain consumer consent, remain transparent, and protect personal information. This is important because trust affects consumer behavior. If consumers trust company, they are more willing to buy, share information, and remain loyal customers.
The article also gave examples of consumer data successfully. For example, commercial real estate companies analyze human movement patterns, restaurants adopted to delivery trends, and businesses that improved customer targeting using analytics. This proves that understanding consumer behavior is now one of the most important business strategies in modern economics. To conclude, this article shows that consumer behavior is constantly evolving due to economic uncertainty, technology, inflation, and digital transformation, and changing lifestyle. In microeconomics, consumer behavior helps explain demand, spending decision, utility maximization, and market changes. And the two graphs clearly shows that consumers are shopping differently, they are spending more carefully, and prioritizing needs over wants. Therefore, businesses that understand consumer behavior can better survive and compete in the market.
And that concludes our discussion for today. Once again, thank you. This has been the Group 1, and God bless everyone. Bye.